And the fact is that if you want to get ranked with everybody else, you know, you can be on the front page. We're good. Hey, we're good. Let's just start. Go ahead. Brian,
Yeah,
you
it's
there?
good evening, everybody. Good evening. Apologies for the slight delay. It's, hope everyone's okay. We're looking good. We've got an awesome panel with us today. We've got our very own Mr. Rob Fortney. We've got the one and only Mr. Brian Johnson, and our new expert in the room, Mr. Hale Pringle. So hopefully that's it's all going to be looking good. Looks like we've got a number of sort of people from all around the world, sort of the Czech Republic. We've got America, I know. We've got some people from the UK. It's all looking good, and probably other far-flung places. I'm in the Philippines. Rob's in Thailand, up the mountain in the middle of nowhere. So it's all looking good, and it's all looking good. So let's do a quick sound check. Yeah, make sure you can hear us. Make sure you can see us, because we don't want to be talking to ourselves.
We do enough of that.
Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Hey, I am in the mountains, so I mean, I am in the middle of. I mean, if you want to talk about the middle of nowhere, I am absolutely in the middle of nowhere. No doubt. I stayed in a hut last night with holes in the ground and the floor. So, anyway. But, you know what? There's almost internet anywhere in the world. So, I've got internet. I've got a job.
Except for Austin Airport.
See, exactly. How can I have signal in the middle of nowhere but airports and all kinds of places that you're like, are you kidding me? How do I not have cell phone service in the middle of the downtown of a city, but yet I'm in Thailand? I don't even know. Above there's clouds. I'm so high up there's clouds like that are below the mountain. And but I got great internet. Seems like the service is strong. I got good connection, so today, guys, we're going to talk about pay-per-click, and we've got some great information. We may even have some documents for you. We're going to show you how you can to learn how to do this process so that you're not wasting a lot of money, because one of the most important things is you get your product, you have this budget that you want to start selling, and if you cannot do this properly, you will have a hole in your wheelbarrow, and your wheelbarrow will leak all over the ground with all your money. So that's the very important thing, and I think we're going to talk about that. Amazon has recently changed some of their PPC, attributes so that you can do some things that you could not do before. I would say that I think it's actually very, very good for all of us. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how you analyze that. And then I think the main thing that I think everybody can hear is we often wonder, well, how do I get on the front page? How do I get on the front page? Well, how you get on the front page is by using PPC, basically. Because if you have a ad, it could appear in the top 1 or 2 above the #1 guy. And that's the magic about pay-per-click. So you can begin to get sales, and then ultimately, if you can spend less money and get people to buy, you make money on pay-per-click, as well as create some other positive things inside of your listing. So with a great listing, great PPC, you know, all of those things, then you can set yourself up for success. Ooh, too much echo, so maybe I may be talking. Let me see if I can tone me down a little bit. How's that? If everybody... Let's do another sound.
So we do sometimes get echoes or double hearing, and sort of when people do a quick refresh, that tends to work. But yeah, please keep us informed if you're getting any echoes or any issues. But,
So
I'll keep an eye on that.
So Paul, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then Hal, and then Brian's going to talk, and we're going to, Brian has been working in the Amazon business helping clients. He runs several, he has some big clients that he works with, does all of their pay-per-click campaigns, and he's developed some ways in which you can look at your pay-per-click and absolutely know whether you're doing the right thing. You can optimize it, and you can do those things and basically stop the amount of money that you're spending wastefully, and it will be able to tell you that. So that's kind of the update. Go ahead, Paul, if you want to introduce yourself, then Hal, and then Brian. And while you're doing that, I'll turn around my camera if you want to look at my good morning.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Adams. On the ugly one of the partnership with respect to the Amazon Gorillas, so I'm looking after all of the membership area, all of the back end information, and just helping out on some of the webinars that we hold, sort of maybe 2-3 a week, at least 2 a week, potentially 3 a week. Webinars, so where we're coaching, teaching, and helping people through their Amazon business, setting up right through to the more experienced sort of campaigners, just to make sure that they're getting sort of the bang for the buck, as it were, on their products, and pushing that through. So I've been doing this for some time now, just over a year. So yeah, I'm based in the Philippines, and it's all good fun. So I'm going to pass you over to Hale, see if he can do a quick rundown of who Hale is.
Okay, hi. Well, I've been doing computers for quite a while. I wrote my first computer program in 1967 when computer mainframes had tubes. About 6 years ago, I decided to get out of the IT side and move into the marketing side. Been studying internet marketing kind of ever since. I have been running webinars for about 4 years now. I'm the head coach for an FBA program, a different one. So I teach their advanced students every week. I was one of their students, and they decided I knew enough that I should be teaching, so I ended up as the teacher. So a lot of these PPC and the Google AdSense and all of this stuff I've been studying for a good while, and I'm a teacher at heart, so I always have some things to say to basically the beginners, the folks who are trying to get into this, who hear some of the words and, oh my goodness, I have no clue as what to do next. And so that's kind of what some of the documents that you'll get when this is over will cover, screenshots of exactly how to look at some of this stuff. So that's me.
Excellent, thank you, Hale. Brian, yes, Rob gave you a quick introduction, but it'd be nice if you could do it yourself.
Cool, I appreciate that. So my name is Brian Johnson. I'm based out of Austin, Texas. Not a whole lot of jungle, not a whole lot of jungle around me. So as far as Amazon goes, I've actually been in e-commerce with eBay and selling full-time there for probably close to 10 years, but over the last 2.5, 3 years, I switched over to Amazon, mostly for private label consulting for brands who wanted to sell on Amazon. And in the last 6 months to the last year, out of necessity, switched primarily over to focusing just on the Amazon pay-per-click side as far as the sponsored ads, and have gotten what I think to be very good at that. And as well as I also have a development team that I'm working with as far as to build software applications to basically help all of us with using Amazon pay-per-click and further optimizing what we're doing so that we can do that much better than everybody else can. But ultimately, it comes down to a good strategy and good troubleshooting and just kind of knowing how to progress and how to scale up what you're doing. So I look forward to talking more.
Awesome. Brilliant. Well done. Rob, I just want to hand it back to yourself so you can introduce what we're doing for the day. And I guess then we could get started with Brian.
Well, a couple things. So basically today we're going to have Brian. He's going to talk about, he's going to give us his expertise, I guess, more than anything. And then Hal's going to share with us, like I talked about, a little bit more about broad targeting and exact targeting. So we're going to go through that. And I think that it's going to be very, very informative. So I think let's just get it. Let's make it happen. People talk about the Amazon gorillas. Well, I'm not in the Amazon, but I definitely am in the jungle. So go ahead and Brian, go ahead and start and give us your information. We're ready.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to go ahead and share some slides that I put together. I don't know how much I'll actually rely on these slides, but at the same time, to kind of keep a pace and keep organization, I'm going to start out at a pretty high level, and hopefully anybody who has any questions on that can post. Oops, hold on here. Hey Rob, do I have screen share rights on mine?
Yeah, Brian, if you move your mouse over to the left, you should see a little number of icons down the left-hand side. The second one down is a green screen with a little arrow pointing to it. That is share your screen icon.
Yeah,
so if you select that.
I'm clicking on it, and it's not doing anything for me, so. All right, no worries. Let's see here. Okay, maybe if I do that here, it may be. Is it sharing now? I mean, can you see basically a PowerPoint slide?
No, I can just see you talking.
All right. Let me see here. Give me 1 second here. See if I can get this corrected. Maybe an issue with my browser. So, Rob, I may need to, I don't know, log back in or something like that. It's not doing it. It's not responding. None of the icons on the left-hand side are doing anything for me.
Okay, so you want to do that, Brian, quickly?
Okay.
All right. While he's doing, I've got something I can talk about a little bit.
Okay.
One of the things about keywords that people hear, and it goes right past them until they're ready to hear it. And I'm going to say it today in hopes that some of you are ready to hear it. We have a tendency to listen to these kinds of webinars, and we jump into the Google Keyword Planner or Merchant Words to find basically synonyms for the words that we think of as the main keyword. And my point here is they do not give you alternate keywords. They'll give you synonyms, but something like corn scraper, they won't give you corn kernel peeler. And so my point is, in addition to using these to see what kind of words they come up with, you ought to look at reviews on books in your topic in Amazon. You ought to look at Google for articles about the top asterisk, whatever your topic is, or the best of whatever your topic is, and read what they're talking about. And look carefully at your competitors' listings in Amazon. Look at their titles, their bullet points, the description, and particularly reviews and Q&A, and see what kind of words people are using. I'll give you one example. I do a lot of dog toys. I don't even know what dock diving is, but a toy that floats can be used by trainers to teach dock diving. That is certainly not a synonym for any word that I know. So when you get ready to look at PPC, first thing to do is to take a good look at what kind of words you're going to be bidding on, because there are people who use totally different words for the same thing than the circle of people that you normally talk to. So try and find those, because you'll get more hits. More hits means more views means more sales. So I don't know if he's back. Let me look back and see. Nope. And I'll just reiterate, there are a number of folks who say the number 1, 2, and 3 places you ought to spend your money to get ranked on page 1 are Amazon PPC, Amazon PPC, and Amazon PPC. That's the place to maximize first, because it's the only place that people have their wallet out, their credit card out, and they're searching to buy something. Every place else you run an ad, they're doing something else, and we're interrupting them. And while our keywords may show them something, we're just as likely to annoy them as for them to say, oh, yeah, I want to go out and go look at that. So the PPC is definitely one of the things you have to master because it's going to be the best bang for your buck. And it looks like he's coming back in. At least I see a little.
Not unless his name counted as Clara, but maybe he's signed in.
Yeah.
Hello, Clara. We'll go ahead, keep on talking now. We'll get him back.
Okay. So that was one of the key points that I wanted to make. I will make one other key point that I'm going to cover a little later, but it's something that we can do now that we could not do before. And that is, and I'm going to make it first so that it's been mentioned twice. Now that we can do exact keyword phrases, when you do find a word that's converting well from you, my suggestion is you extract it from your other campaigns, put it in a campaign that belongs to just it. I'm getting somebody else talking, Rob.
Okay, sorry.
So you would like to have a campaign with just the words exact match that are converting the best for you. Because you want, I mean, if you've got a keyword that your average cost per sale is 10%, you'd like as many people to see that as you possibly can pull together. And the best way to do that is to have a campaign with just those words. And if we're still getting 10%, yeah.
Al, explain to him what that actually means in dollar amount. Meaning, because I think that's a very important thing. So go ahead and explain what that means and what your real trade is. So you're spending this much money. How much money comes back to you on a campaign like that?
Well, let's say you've got a $20 item, and you've got a word that every time people click on it, you're getting like 9 out of 10 are buying. If you've got any kind of profit margin, which you've got to have, if you're making, say, just for example, $10, and you spend $1 and you get $9 back every time you spend $1, it's like I've heard this in so many different webinars, but it's like, how many dollars would you feed that machine if you're getting $9 back for every, even if it's only $5 back for every dollar you spend? But you don't want that kind of keyword lost in among a bunch of other words, because it's your real winner. And we didn't used to be able to pull that out and make it an exact, I'm only interested in people who would say exactly these words, because they're the ones who, they always seem to look at my product and buy. And so you're using what we call empirical. You're actually looking at the data, and it's telling you that this keyword is just a straight out flat winner.
Winner.
Pull it out.
We like winners. That's exactly the deal.
Winner. That's how we make money.
We're gonna put Brian back on, and he's gonna explain this even more and how you find or how you know for sure you have a winner or for sure you have a loser. Are you ready to go, Brian, again?
I am good to go. Thank you for your patience.
What, we're supposed to have patience?
All right. There was patience? No. Can everybody see my?
Hey, Brian, hold on one second. Let's make sure you share your screen at the top with everyone, and make sure everyone can see the screen.
I am screen sharing, and it should be a title slide there.
I can see it.
I can see it.
Yeah.
Can
Okay.
anybody else see it who's here? And then, Hal, keep an eye on the chat and see if there's any of those things you can answer, Hal.
Yep, looks like we can see it.
Okay.
All right,
cool.
go ahead.
All right, so jumping right in here then. I'm going to start out with just some basic definition. Some of this is going to be kind of boring for maybe a couple, for a few of you who already know all this stuff, but trust me, I'll get into more detail here. So as far as just going back and just kind of redefining basic pay-per-click for those who may or may not be familiar, it's just a method of advertising generally used by internet marketers, method for advertising, where you basically pay a fee to show for each time that somebody clicks on an ad that you're displaying for your product, your site, your page. Generally, those are keyword targeted ads. There's different variations on that, but certainly for Amazon's platform, it is based primarily on keywords. And you are only paying for the ads that actually get clicked through, not simply just by the number of times the ad is shown. There are models certainly outside of Amazon where that is used, where you pay how many times it's shown, but in this case with Amazon sponsored ads, it's specifically just when shoppers click on your specific advertisement. Some examples here, if you were to do a search in my example here for dartboard, for instance, on Amazon, there's going to be a few different places as far as where the ads are going to show. The first one is going to be usually the first 2 search results, and they introduced that probably in the last 4 weeks. Amazon tests pretty consistently different placement throughout their site as far as where sponsored ads or pay-per-click ads are shown. Currently, about a month ago, they added the sponsored ads to the first 2 listings above all the organic listings that show up when somebody does a search using a keyword above the products. So the first 2 are basically the pay-per-click sponsored ads. And then oftentimes, like say on second or third page, they'll show those same ads down at the bottom of the list of returned products. And then pretty consistently what they call the right rail is that right column of 4 that shows up on the right-hand side of search results. And if I may, let me actually try to show. I was just going to show you a live version of that. And there it is. Sorry about that. Okay, so now you should, hopefully everybody is able to see just a search result on Amazon. And what I was showing in my slide there was I simply just did a search for dartboard, and in the search results you're going to have various spots. They have, like say if you look down at the third one here, the Viper Hudson collection, that's the first of what they call the organic or the naturally returning product listings. So that when shoppers are running a search for dartboard, as an example, the actual product listings start in this, what is actually 4th position if you look at it vertically. The TG Dart game in this example, excuse me, is the first organic one. You can tell the pay-per-click ads by the ones that are marked sponsored. And you can see the sponsored on the right-hand side, and there's the 4 that are the right rail on the right-hand side. There is an advertisement, excuse me, there's an advertisement section at the top here that actually is available to Amazon partners through their vendor program, and you can bid to basically own this first section here. This is not part of sponsored ads. It is a separate advertising program called Marketing Services that you can get access to, but it does come with some extra requirements from Amazon. So in general, what the basics on this is that if somebody does a search for a product, they're looking for dartboards in this example, and they see a sponsored pay-per-click ad, and they have the ability, they can click on it. You get charged for, depending on how much, whatever that amount is. Could be 50 cents, could be $2, could be $10 per click. It all depends on how competitive that particular product is. And when a shopper does click through on any of these ads, whether it's a sponsored ad or it is a natural listing, they're going to go through to a product detail page. And just looking at a specific product detail page, there's actually advertisements on this one as well. So this could be your own listing. It could be a competitor's listing. If you happen to be selling dartboards, they have other down, if you go down a little bit farther, they have a whole row for sponsored products. In some instances, they'll have a couple of rows. So they'll have an entire row of additional sponsored ads that you can bid upon. It's the second row down here. So my point of all this is that there's a lot of different locations where you have the ability to position your product listing so that you can be in front of the eyeballs of potential buyers and therefore compete. If your product is not ramped up and optimized and put into a position where you've gotten it into a position where it shows up in the top of the listings organically, then you have the ability to buy your way in front of the eyeballs of the shoppers. Switch back over here. So assuming you can see back to the slides again. As far as a pay-per-click, as far as that pay-per-click auction works, it's a bidding system so that where in this case a buyer searches for on Amazon for the product using a search term as an example. Amazon goes out and they look for all the ads related to products that match up or are relevant to the search terms or the keywords that a buyer was using. They also take into consideration some other factors. There's several other factors actually that come up as far as when your ad is going to show compared to other advertisements. I'll get into that a little bit later.
Brian, hold on. Don't get too far ahead. We're still seeing the dartboards on Amazon.
Alrighty. Let me let's see here. Let me switch that over.
Yep, perfect.
Awesome. Thank you for letting me know.
Okay.
So in that process, what I'm showing there is the 1, 2, 3, 4. It's basically Amazon's auction system as far as where a shopper, they're searching, Amazon finds the ads that are relevant to what the buyer is searching for. They show the ads and they're going to put them in an order as far as first position, second, third, fourth, so on and so forth, based off of a number of factors. And that could include anything from the relevance of what search term or what keyword that you bid on as a seller as it relates to the exact customer search term that the shopper is using. It could be other factors including match type, as we was discussing earlier, as far as whether it's exact phrase or broad match. It can also be based off of whether it's an automatic targeting campaign versus a manual targeting campaign. It's handled slightly differently. As well as things like category, what category that your product is in. And they also take into factors that we don't have any control over, and that includes things like the buyer or the shopping history of that particular shopper. So if they've always, for instance, if they've always in the past bought products that were in a color red, Amazon's already recorded that as an e-commerce platform. They've already recorded that, and they're taking note of the fact that past buyer behavior will affect which advertisements and which listings that they show to the shopper, because their goal is to try to get, for the ads, is to try to get the shopper to click through on the advertisement and ultimately to purchase the product. And so whatever combination of their algorithm that they're going to use, including factors directly related to the product and factors directly related to the shopper, are going to be taken into consideration as far as how a listing shows up either in the organic search results or in the advertisements being shown to the shopper. A little bit of definition here as far as the targeting campaign. I think you touched on it a little bit earlier, but the automatic targeting campaign is where Amazon makes the selection as far as the keywords that match up to the customer's own search terms. And then the manual targeting campaign, that's where we as sellers dictate where our ad is shown. The account budget, there's a lot of misconception in the marketplace, and I think all of us are trying to get people to learn quickly, because it can be pretty damaging if you don't know it ahead of time. But to understand the difference between an account daily cap versus a campaign average daily budget. At the account level, so basically if you set up a sponsored ads advertising account, there is an account level setting called account daily cap. And that's basically where, let's say you set it for $100, and you have, and that's an actual limit, that's an actual cap that Amazon tries at least to adhere to, so that if you set it for $10, then they're not going to spend more than $10 of your advertising budget each day. And they actually will, in general practice, they will stop at that $10 per day. At the account level, you can have, within an advertising account, you can have multiple campaigns, and within each campaign you can have specific ad groups, and those ad groups may contain individual products that you're selling, as well as the keywords that you're bidding upon. So when you set an account daily cap, that includes an overall kind of an umbrella budget limit for all of your campaigns that are within that account. Now, if you leave that blank and rely specifically on just the average daily budget that you assign to each campaign, that gives you greater control if you're doing targeted campaigns based off of, as an example, specific, like for instance, you've created, like, say, a manual campaign, and it's targeting specific keywords that you know convert, and so you want to pour as much of your budget and investment into that targeted campaign so that it gets most of your advertising budget, and because you know it's going to convert. When you're doing more things like keyword research and market research, those generally you want to have a lower budget because you don't know yet as far as what the ROI, what the return is going to be based off of your average spend. So as an example, to kind of put this in relationship here, let's say you had 5 campaigns running. Each campaign had a budget of $25. But you had an account. What's going to happen on that is that Amazon is going to spend on average across a month, it's going to spend on average $25 per campaign as far as your ad budget. Now, if you have, the misconception that most people have is that is a limit, and therefore if you set it for $25, then Amazon's only going to spend $25 at the campaign level. That's not true. That only happens at the account daily cap level. And so in the example here is if I have account daily cap of $100 and I have 5 campaigns that are $25, not all of those campaigns, even if Amazon spent all of your advertising budget that was available across all of your campaigns, 5 times 25 is 125. You're not going to reach 125 if you have an account daily cap of 100. It's going to stop. You're going to run out of budget. It's going to stop at the 100 because you have the account daily cap. The clarification that I want to make sure that everybody understands with the campaign average daily budget is that it's based off of a prorated 30-day average. So if you set a daily campaign average daily budget of, say, $10, you're effectively authorizing Amazon to spend up to 30 times that $10 budget, or $300, within the next 30 days. They can spend that the very first day if you happen to be in a very competitive niche with and targeting very generic search terms that have a high bid. So I want to make sure that everybody who's listening understands is don't confuse. If you set a $10 daily budget, don't think that they're just going to spend $10 and then you're going to run out of budget, because that's going to be prorated across a month. And sometimes, now most of the time they're not going to hit, they're going to spend $300 in the first day, but they certainly can spend $50, $100, and that's pretty much a normal thing. Some other basic definitions here: customer search term versus keyword. Customer search term is what the shopper actually types in as far as the words into Amazon's search bar when they're looking for a product. Keywords are what we as sellers actually bid upon. Amazon's pay-per-click auction system matches up what the customer search for in their customer search term with the keyword that we bid upon. Impressions, clicks, and orders. Impressions are the number of times that your advertisement is shown to potential shoppers. It's simply just every time they do a search or every time they're on a product page, if your ad happens to come up because it's relevant, that's an impression. It's potentially viewed, it's available for view by a shopper. A click is when a shopper actually clicks on your advertisement. Hopefully it's a shopper and not a competitor, but that certainly does happen. And then an order, of course, is when the shopper actually commits to your product and purchases the product that you're selling. Click-through rate, or I believe what it shows on the advertising reports that are available as CTR, is the relationship between the number of times that shoppers click on your advertisements versus how many times the ad was shown. Generally, what an impression means is how many times the Amazon considered your product advertisement relevant to what customers were searching for. Clicks is the number of times that a shopper saw your advertisement and thought it was relevant to what they were searching for. And so then the click-through rate is going to be just a ratio of how many times that a shopper basically agreed with you as far as the advertisement that you're showing to them. How are we doing as far as pace and feedback? Am I going too slow? Am I losing people?
No, it seems to be okay.
Hey, Jason.
Okay.
Jason said, seems to me that's kind of illegal. Jason, maybe you need to explain a little more. There's certainly nothing that Brian talks about that would be shady or illegal. Certainly through TOS.
You're saying as far as like a pay-per-click platform in general, like, and this is done already by it's not just Amazon. It's pretty much any search engine. Like Google has their AdWords platform, Bing has their own, Yahoo has their own. There's plenty of search engines out there that show advertisements in trade for advertiser dollars.
Okay, I got it. Okay, Jason said what he said was it absolutely is illegal. He was talking about how people were attacking his Facebook ads, and he had people just clicking on his Amazon stuff. So absolutely, that is illegal.
Yeah, the click fraud is absolutely. It's not even technically illegal. It's just against terms of service. But
I don't know how you prevent that, but.
Well, in Amazon, there's certainly methods that we can do in order to try to avoid it more often. But the first thing we do is we want to make sure we identify the problem in the first place, and I can get into that a little bit. A couple of these other ones here. One of the things that's covered in a lot of courses for Amazon as well as podcasts is the advertising cost of sale. Sometimes it's referred incorrectly, or if it's I've actually seen people teach some bad advice on this. But so the advertising cost of sale, or what they call ACOS, is simply just a relationship between the gross dollar sales of all your products that are sold through your pay-per-click advertising divided by your total ad spend. So the total amount of money that you're spending on advertising on Amazon and what the resulting gross sales is. The general rule of thumb on this is that if you truly understand your total cost of goods sold, meaning how much it costs to source your product, to ship it into Amazon, to the FBA fees, the taxes, advertising fees, all that kind of stuff. If you truly know what your actual cost of goods net margin is, or your percentage is, then you have a pretty good idea as far as essentially what your break even is. So I know certainly a lot of people, a lot of the courses and everything, they teach, try to get a product that you can have a margin, a net profit of 30 or 40%. But because most people don't take into consideration all of their costs until tax time comes around, they usually don't realize that it's typically less than that. So for instance, if you actually know your true profit margin percentage, let's say it is 30%, a good rule of thumb to start with of a break even on your advertising would be to have an ACOS, or advertising cost of sale, of 30% or lower. That is simply just, for me, that's a first milestone when I'm consulting on clients and doing coaching for pay-per-click. Our first goal is to break even. Most of the time, people are not. That's usually why they're seeking, my kind of help, is because they're bleeding money out and they don't know why. And so it's not uncommon for me to see sometimes, 50%, 100%, 200%, 900% ACOS, and they don't know why. Sometimes it's a case of they're simply just taking on too competitive a market, and they're trying to go head-to-head with their pay-per-click advertising against some of the people who have deeper pockets and can spend more. Sometimes it's just because, most of the time, it's because they're not targeting their ideal audience as well as they should. They're they're bidding on terms like Christmas gift when they should be, targeting dartboards for deaf people. I'm not trying to make a joke on that, but trying to make it more specific, because ultimately, when you're paying for people to see an advertisement, click through on your advertisement, and ultimately convert, you want to target in exactly who your ideal audience is, not try to shotgun and get everybody, because then you're just going to spend money and not get conversions. Something else to consider too is how sophisticated some of your back-end marketing is. That may include encouraging existing shoppers to repurchase, whether you are able to put them into some kind of a back-end sales funnel that allows you to get a hold of their email address and to market to them outside of Amazon, or whether you have them continually return back to Amazon on a regular basis, either through subscriptions or just repurchasing product. That is where you would come into where you have multiple purchases for your average customer. You can determine what your lifetime customer value is. If I acquire this customer through advertising, maybe that customer will buy 3 of my products on average across the course of the lifetime of that customer, as long as I know them. And so you may consider it from the standpoint of my break-even profit margin is 30%, but if that customer comes back and purchases from you 2 more times without spending advertising dollars, then your percentages change. That's more of a sophisticated calculation that you'll get into if you're just starting out on Amazon or Amazon pay-per-click. You probably have a lot bigger things to deal with at the moment than lifetime customer value, but as part of the growth and scaling of your business, you'll get to the point where you understand the total value of acquiring a new customer. What I generally teach as far as the primary goals of Amazon sponsored ads is generally the first thing I always recommend, and this is a common step that most pardon me for muting here. I've got a bit of a cough trying to get over here. So the primary goal, the first one I always have people do is a listing validation. This is a very important step. Most people start out thinking that they basically are focused in when they start an Amazon sponsored ad pay-per-click campaign. They're looking for goal number 3 for immediate sales. Yet they haven't done their homework yet to understand why customers would even buy from them in the first place, or whether or not they're even targeting the customers that are likely to convert for their product. They just go in and say, oh, pay-per-click's not working for me because I'm not getting any sales. I'm just getting a bunch of impressions, a bunch of clicks, but nobody's buying anything. So the first goal as far as listing validation, and actually let me go into the next one here. What I'm basically doing is I'm creating an automatic campaign. That automatic campaign is designed to not get sales. It's designed to market test. So in other words, what you're doing is you're basically asking Amazon, since Amazon is in control as far as which customer search terms to show your advertising for based off of their understanding of your product listing, you're basically asking Amazon, what product am I selling? You run your advertisement, you run your automatic campaign for a week, and then you take a look at one of the advertising reports, and I recommend the search term report specifically because it's the one that includes the customer search terms. And you can look at the number of times that Amazon showed your advertisement for a list of customer search terms. So what you're looking for initially is where is Amazon showing, which customer search terms is Amazon showing my listing for the most? If they've got it wrong, if they don't understand your product, they're going to show it for unrelated or too broad of search terms. Or the search terms are going to be all over the place. They're not going to be focused. They're not going to be targeted to a buying audience. They're just going to be shotgun out there. And usually what that means is that Amazon is confused by your product listing. And so the first thing the first campaign you want to run is an automatic campaign. You want to probably keep with a fairly low budget, set a higher than average default bid of like say $2. I also teach a high-low method as well, where you can do like a $5 bid for a day and then scale it down to maybe like a 50 cents or $1 bid for the rest of the week to test kind of the range, the high and low range, to see how competitive and how expensive the search terms are that are related to your product. But that's more of a research method there. But this first automatic campaign is strictly just to ask Amazon, what am I selling? If Amazon's confused and is showing your ad for search terms that you don't think it should be searching, it should be showing for, then it's up to you to change your product listing. With Amazon pay-per-click, that's primarily going to be the campaign title and the back-end search term fields. Organic listings still rely somewhat on the bullets and the description, but sponsored ads primarily is focused on title the keywords that are in your title and the keywords that are in your back-end search term fields. Any questions on this particular, on the listing validation? And I will add on this is that, so I'll run the campaign, I'll look to see what Amazon is showing my product for. If it matches up with what my expectations are, great. I'll scale it up, I'll look for the products that, or the search terms that maybe are converting to sales, and then I'll go on to the next phase. If it's completely wrong, I'll change my listing to basically teach Amazon what my product listing is actually about and how they should be targeting the shoppers to see my advertisement. And then I'll run that validation campaign again to double check. This is similar to if you were to create a manual campaign and use Amazon's own suggested keywords. However, the automatic campaign is going to show you a little more in depth. It's going to show a lot more search terms than what Amazon would just suggest to you.
Brian, how long would you suggest that you run the auto campaign for?
Usually just a few days, like maybe a week. 5 to 7 days. There's a bit of a delay as far as sales data. That's primarily as far as sales data showing up. So if you run an advertising campaign through sponsored ads, you'll generally see, not in real time, but generally same day, you'll see the impressions and you'll see clicks. But generally sales take at least a couple of days, usually more like a few days before they start showing up. And that's primarily, that's not that's not Amazon's computers being slow or something. That's simply just the natural checkout process of a shopper. They've got their credit card has to clear, the product needs to be shipped, whatever the case is, before that sale value will actually become valid and post to your sponsor, to your campaign metrics. Now,
okay,
if I'm doing...
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Okay. If I'm doing a high-low, which is a different strategy that I also teach, where you go in still with a low budget. You're expecting to run out of budget. You're not looking for sales. You're just trying to get a list of customer search terms. But when I do a high-low, that basically just means that I'm bidding. My default bid is a lot more aggressive, maybe $5 per click. That when I'm bidding higher, I'll only run that for a day, because usually that's sufficient in order to get enough information without blowing a bunch of budget. But most people completely miss this listing validation step, and then they wonder why they are suffering so much when they're trying to create a manual campaign on their own research and not understanding why it's converting. And they just write it off as Amazon pay-per-click doesn't work, when in fact they just jumped in too deep too quick.
Right. So one of the questions I've got here, what does it mean if I'm running an auto campaign and I get no clicks at all?
So if you're getting no clicks at all and you're just running an automatic campaign, most likely it's because of a block on your account or your product. Usually that means that there is probably, in most cases, there's an error that is probably at the within the specific product that disqualifies it from disqualifies it from advertising. That's probably the biggest thing. Certainly anybody who's doing like retail arbitrage, maybe they are competing with other sellers on the same listing, and so they don't even have the buy box. You do have to have the buy. You do have to own the buy box or be the default seller when somebody goes to check out for a product, in order for you to be able to show ads. Now, there's also Amazon generally wants you to have your product at Amazon FBA, as far as fulfillment by Amazon, in order for your ads to start showing. Otherwise, there can be like maybe a 30-day delay before they'll let you run ads. We've actually identified there's some bugs in Amazon's system as well, which shouldn't surprise anybody. But one of the things that here's a little tip here that's not taught, that if you are running into a situation where you have 0 impressions and all you're running is an automatic campaign or a single campaign, then check first to see if there's any errors within your specific ad group. So you've got the account, you've got the campaign, and then below that is the ad group. Check within your ad group to make sure that there's no red errors showing. Second, if you just now launched your product, maybe it's just arrived at FBA, or maybe it hasn't arrived at FBA, maybe if you're doing merchant fulfilled, check also to see if you have, in the back end, when you're editing your product, check to see if the manufacturer's suggested retail price is populated or not. It's a weird bug, but people have found that if it's empty, that sometimes their ads don't run, but as soon as they populate it with a default amount in their suggested, their MSRP field, that all of a sudden they can run ads. And that's just a flat-out bug. There's no reason why that should be. Beyond that, I've got a whole checklist for troubleshooting campaigns, but another couple of ones on that specifically, as far as 0 impressions. If it's truly 0 impressions and not just a little bit, not just like low impressions, it's truly 0 impressions. That's typically, it's an error, it's a block. I would reach out immediately to Seller Central. They can actually go in there and help you figure out where the block is. Most of the time it's because you don't have the buy box, or there's some other error with your listing that's blocking it. In rare cases, it's because you're not bidding enough, or you don't have, it's usually, maybe that you're not bidding enough, but usually that just results in low impressions as opposed to 0.
All right, Brian. That's cool. I'll let you carry on.
Okay. So just a couple other ones. I'm not going to go into all of these goals just for the sake of time. I think there's probably a lot more Q&A that could occur on this. The second one I was going to mention is as far as the keywords research. No. Apparently that's later on in the slides. So this is where my slides get out of order here. So if you haven't set up a campaign at all and you wanted to do this initial phase of validating your listing, then you would create an automatic campaign. And I'll make these slides available to Rob so that he can get these out. But the first step is going to be in your Seller Central account. In the Advertising tab, there's a Campaign Manager option. And this is assuming that you've never created an advertisement yet using Amazon sponsored ads. But you're going to go into Campaign Manager, and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to create a campaign. You're going to name it, and I typically name my campaigns according to maybe a product line. Once in a while I'll do it where I'll name it according to the experiment that I'm running. Whether I'm doing some kind of keyword discovery, keyword research, or I'm using some external tool that is using some technique. But in most cases, it's just based off of, I'm selling dartboards, and therefore I'm going to call my first campaign, dartboards automatic for my automatic campaign. I'll set an average daily budget. Depending on what your risk threshold is, maybe set an average daily budget of $10, $20, something like that for your for this listing validation first campaign. Just depending on how many times that you're actually in there checking it every single day. I know if you're anything like me, sometimes I'll start something and I'll forget about it, and I'll come back to it 3 weeks later. You don't want to have a budget or a campaign that's running without attention for 3 weeks without you at least checking in on it. So I'd recommend putting in a start date, maybe a start date today, and maybe an end date of, say, 1 week as an example, just in case you get distracted and forget to come back to it. You can always extend it out longer just simply by changing the date. But if you do forget it, you want to have some kind of a stopping point on it. And then set the targeting type for automatic. So that's setting up in a basic automatic campaign. Within the campaign, you'd set up a specific ad group. Generally, I'll name and I'll have each ad group sectioned off so it's per product. So maybe it is the extra large dartboard as an example. And I'll set a maximum default bid of when I'm doing of like say $2 in the case of this initial validation, and then I'll add in the products by basically specifying as far as which products, which ASINs or SKUs or product that I have in my inventory, which ones I'm actually going to show this show advertisement for. And that can be one or more. Like I'll group all variations together. Like if I have a dartboard that is that has different variations as far as like, maybe it's, I've got a red one, a black one, a blue one, a white one, and those are just variations in my listing. I'll group those all together into one ad. It's pretty rare that I would split out the variations into their own advertisements unless there's something very clear and significant that I want to isolate that specific variation for. Most of the time I'll just group them all together. And then once it's running, you can use the campaign manager to monitor your overall performance with an automatic campaign. You can't drill in and see which search terms that customers are using. That's only available in the search term report, which is one of the advertising reports. And that's simply just the advertising reports are available on in Seller Central. It's the Reports tab, Advertising Reports, and Search Term Report is the specific one that you would request. And that search term report will actually show you the for an automatic campaign, it'll show you which search terms that a customer actually used, how many times your ad was shown, how many click-throughs, how many, if there is any purchases, which is not the goal of the first one. It will typically just show an asterisk for the matching keyword that you bid on because Amazon's keeping that as proprietary. Now, when you run a manual campaign and you're specifying the individual keywords that you're bidding on, then those will show up as far as a keyword, but otherwise an automatic campaign will just be an asterisk. There we go. So any questions on that first one as far as the initial listing validation automatic campaign?
No, you've managed to actually fix a few people's sort of issues as you've been talking. They've come back and said, "Wow, I managed to fix it. Thank you." So,
well, and I tell you what,
value.
Yeah, it's I do actually have, and I don't know, Rob, as far as what you want to or what everybody wants to have as far as shared. I'm the moderator of a Facebook group that specifically focuses in on Amazon pay-per-click troubleshooting. And I do have a checklist there, and I can certainly make that obviously available to this audience too. That is kind of a walkthrough as far as some of the common problems with an advertising campaign and what to check for to identify whether or not that's actually your problem or not. And honestly, I mean, that's probably the most in-demand document there, is simply just being able to understand, like, where do I even look to understand where something's broken. And then, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, is that we are developing software. It's still in its early stages right now, but it does provide some very valuable information already. But we're going to continue to make that more and more advanced, so that ultimately it's one of those things where you just log in and it just says, "Hey, this is working. This is broken. Here's what you need to do to fix it." And so that's our goal. We're going to continue to work toward that. And we've been working on that for the last 3 or 4 months now.
Awesome.
As far
Brian,
as
Brian, let me stick a word in here. One of the things that'll be in the document I give them for those who haven't used Excel before is some screenshots on how to download those reports and then actually get them into Excel and change the column widths and be able to look at it, because there are people for whom that is a major challenge.
Yeah, I actually did a webinar on that. Gosh, probably a month ago, maybe it was, and that was specifically as far as how to interpret, how to set up the search term report in Excel. And unfortunately, it was one of those things where, watching somebody crawl through a spreadsheet, you lose a lot of attention span on that one. So a lot of people kind of, poke fun at me and say, it's like, yeah, I didn't fall asleep until 20, 30 minutes in. But it's kind of a necessary evil. I definitely encourage everybody to, at a minimum, get to know and get to understand that search term report. There's 6 different advertising reports, but the search term report I find is the most actionable, the most valuable.
Totally agree.
Cool. And that's awesome. That's a resource. I'd love to take a look at that too, just because I'm part of the community and we're trying to make things better despite Amazon's lack of information. They actually do have some decent training out on YouTube that they try to come out with, but it sometimes is a little bit dated. But it certainly is. It's more polished than what I put together usually.
Not a problem.
So then, as far as this slide deck goes, the second phase, which plays into, obviously, as far as what you're talking about, as far as going into the search term report and looking for the data that is actually going to help you. One of the things that I key off of and I add into my search term report Excel spreadsheet, as well as the software, is I'll actually do a net calculation that says where I have total gross sales of a product based off of a customer search term, less the advertising spend that I have that I spent on that customer search term in selling that product, and just kind of seeing what the net difference is to see, am I losing? I'm not relying on just like ACOS percentages. I'm actually seeing, okay, what's the dollar, the net dollar value of this particular search term. And usually what I'll do is I'll use that to help me make some decisions as far as which search terms are not only converting, but actually converting profitably. Because there's plenty of search terms that you can sell 50 products on, but you could be losing money on every single one of them. But what I'll do is I'll in the search term report, I'll filter out and I'll identify actually what I'm showing here as far as the second phase. That's that high-low that I was talking about, where I'll start out my automatic campaign with like a really high bid, like say $5. And that's just to identify those high competition, high value terms that ultimately I may not even ever bid on. I just want to be aware that they're out there, because I can use those high competition, high value terms to do further keyword research so that I can look at some of the more rare, or what they call long tail keywords that may have a much lower cost per click, perhaps likely a lower number of impressions or lower number of searches, but ultimately when I put them all together, like let's say if I have, rather than paying $5 or $10 or $20 in some categories, rather than paying $5 for a click on a very high competition search term, I'd rather have 10 other related search terms that cumulatively have the same amount of traffic and maybe only cost me $1 per click. and outweigh this $5 per click search term. So I want to be aware of those. That's why I do the high research method. But then ultimately I'm going to go back to the low side, and I'm going to bid lower, 50 cents. In some cases, I've got members of my Facebook community that, they do strategies that work in certain categories where they'll bid a penny, they'll bid 5 cents, and they'll look for all the terms that, they get traffic on and clicks, or where they get clicks and maybe even conversions for terms that cost them a nickel. Cost them a dime, and they'll collect all those together and they'll put them into their own manual campaign using exact match, and they'll target a budget just on a manual campaign that targets 5, 10, 20 specific keywords using exact keywords that they can just feed money into all day long, every day, and not worry about
it. All right, so I think that gives everybody a basic understanding of, what it is, pay-per-click is and how it works. Some people are asking about a search term report and what that looks like, and I think that kind of leads us into that next part. For what Brian does and the actual, okay, this is how I analyze this stuff. And these are the kind of things that we do in the private Guerrillas boot camp that we work with people. I mean, we have these conversations every week, and we look at these statistics and we look at them and are able to kind of work with each other. And so that's what we do inside of the Guerrillas boot camp. And we meet twice a week. We meet on Sunday nights. We meet on Saturday. I get confused because my time frame's all. But we meet on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, and then we meet on Wednesdays where we discuss this. And sometimes we'll bring on people just like Brian, and he comes in and he shares his experience. But in our small group, sometimes 25 people, sometimes 50. It depends on what everybody else's things they're doing. But we also record those so people can come back in. And then, they're able to look at our library. So what we do is we take things like this, this webinar, we break it down in smaller sections so you can kind of look at it in our library. And we have, I think we have over, 100 videos now, and we're working on them slowly, trying to, put them up so that you can go in. Many of them you can go in and just go, okay, this is the section I need, and be able to go through them that way. Or what we talk about in our Magic 3, which is, listen, quit working on step number 27. You shouldn't, we appreciate you coming to this webinar, but you shouldn't be spending tremendous amounts of time on pay-per-click and you don't have a product. If you don't have a product, and you're looking at PPC and studying and trying to understand everything about PPC, you're definitely not going to get to launching your product, because every minute you're not spending on looking for a product or sourcing a product, which is, your second, third, fourth step, you're not getting to having a product, which is the only thing that matters. If I would encourage you to do anything at all, even on your second product, is just to go get a product. And especially if it's your first product, we've got several members in the boot camp right now who are having really good success from the information, Brian, that they've looked at and what we've kind of coached them with. And I've got, in the last week, I just got a report on one of the members that did 27,000 last month. I've got 3 or 4 people in the last 90 days, some of them 60, but they're doing 10,000. I've got a couple people doing 5. I've got somebody who started with $300. They only had $300, and last month they did 7,500. So you got to imagine, you start with $300. They ordered it off of, I think, either AliExpress or Alibaba Wholesale. And they got, I don't even know. You couldn't get too much for, I think it was $8. I think he got 50 items. He sold those, got some more, because you could get them very quickly. He was paying too much, but now he's reduced his cost even more, which is even more exciting. And every single one of these guys did not do crazy amounts of giveaways, and they did very little to get some, some of those reviews started. But then they used pay-per-click to continually move up, and they also used it. We taught them how to make a great listing, how to get great photographs and those kind of things. And so that's helped them out a lot to get to those numbers. I think we have over 25 people that have launched products in the last maybe 100 days. So anyway, I won't keep talking about those guys, but we're real proud of all those guys. I know for I think next week, Paul and I are going to try to launch. We're gonna do an end of the year special. If you're interested in launching your product in January and working on making your dream come true of the Amazon, and you haven't, or maybe even your second or third product, and you just need some people to kind of guide you through that, with our two weekly sessions. If you're looking for anybody like that, certainly we're going to do I think we're going to do a really good special. We're going to put people in the boot camp for $90 for 99 days, and we're going to help you get a product launched. We're going to work with you twice a week. So we'll put that link up here in a little bit. So if you're interested in joining the Gorillas, starting January 1 and working on getting your product, launched by the end of March, we feel like we've had many people do that. So if you're interested in, hanging out with people twice a week and, being able to ask questions if you're unsure along the way, or, hey, I got a PPC question, and if I don't know, we're going to put you in contact with Brian and he'll answer your question. So we've got a lot of people who can share with you their initial, here's what I did. And I think that sometimes is more important than hearing about somebody who's doing $100,000 a month, because they're so far away from the actual things that you're doing. They don't have to worry about budget. They can call Brian up and say, listen, I'm doing 100 grand. Why don't you do all this for me, and I'll pay you to do it, because I don't really have time to do that. So that's kind of what I think is happening there. So we'll put up a link in a little bit. If you're interested in joining the Gorillas next year, it's normally $500. We just like to get some new people who are interested and really serious about doing that, of launching their product here by March next year, and we're going to walk you through the whole process. And we call it personal coaching, but it's in a group, kind of like a classroom. So Brian, I think the next thing that we'd love for you to share is some of the software and how you can look at these campaigns and decide whether or not what you're doing works and how that software works. Are you ready to do that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Let me get my screen share working here. Come on. This thing's
Take your time. You're good.
Yeah. Let's see if I got it right here. The come on, where's the screen at? All right, let me bring it back here to default. Boy, usually I'm not struggling as much with
Hey, welcome to our nightmares sometimes.
Well,
many times stuff goes awry.
Yeah, I upgraded to Windows 10 yesterday, and I haven't quite gotten all the nuances as far as some of the subtle changes that it does or doesn't do on me here. So here we go, and this time it worked. Okay, so does everybody see my new screen? Or it's like a bunch of charts, lists?
Yep, we can see that.
By the way, guys, okay. I'm telling you, you guys are going to be so shocked at what this thing can do.
So, well, and we haven't even, there's some cool things that it does already, but we have so much more that's coming out. I can't even list it. We try to keep a lot of that actually kind of quiet, simply because we have competitors that are coming out with their own products too, and we don't want to give them do them any favors. But at the same time, is that what we're basically doing on this one right now, the current iteration, we've got a free version of PPC Scope, and that's available. You can go to ppcscope.com and register for a free account, and what that will basically do is give you an account level overview. So similar to what I'm looking at right now, not quite as much here, but similar to this, the free report will still actually give you an overall account advertising account health check, telling you what your total across all of your campaigns and ad groups and everything, what your total sales funnel impressions and clicks and orders are, what your total sales, gross sales are, what your total ad spend is, your overall ACOS. It'll also calculate for you as far as what your average ad spend is per unit. So for every unit that you sell, how much did you spend on average per unit sold just on advertising? And you can watch that trend down over time as you optimize your campaign listings. Now, one of the things that's actionable on just the free account alone is the ability to, we have what's called a most and least effective search terms. Now, what I'm showing right here is just the account, basically the account dashboard for the what we call a basic plan, which is our first level of paid plans. And this one has, looks like we've got, what is it, 10 and 10 here. So it's basically showing 20 different search terms that it's ranked, that's grouped together by the most effective search terms and the least effective search terms. On the free version, it's like 5 and 5. So it's a little bit more here, but it's still something you can act upon, and there's no charge for that one. And you just what you do on that particular one is on the free account is you can go out, you can register, you request and download your search term report from your seller central account, and then you simply just import that or upload that search term report into your PPC scope account. And so in what it'll do is it'll come back with basically this account level summary that gives you some good metrics as far as, okay, what's the overall health of my account. But what's the cool part is it'll actually go in and kind of what I was mentioning just a little bit ago as far as the net value of a customer search term, of basically saying, here's a customer search term, I had X amount of gross sales, but it cost me less the amount of advertising that I spent on that search term. That's your net that's your net amount. So in the case of, like, say the examples that I'm showing here, and these are just fictitious accounts, but in this example here, but like this first one here, we're basically saying that if I just roll over it, that during the period, and a search term report is by default it's 60 days from the time that it's run. It's 60 days in history. And so in the free account, it's looking at the entire 60-day window of your account, but it's in there, it's identified the terms that are doing the best, so that you can see as far as the search terms that have converted more than once. And the reason why we don't show the ones that only convert once is because the one-off sales are not reliable when it comes to targeting further advertising for. It's not until they start getting some recurring sales, 2 or more orders as a result of that search term, then we can start seeing, okay, that search term seems to come back again and again. We will we'll do more as far as targeting that specific search term. So in this example here, I look at this and it's going to tell me, here's a search term for, in this case, colloidal silver, which is a supplement that has some health benefits and everything. It's going to show as far as which specific campaign that it's in, as well as the specific ad group that it's in. And it's going to tell me what my gross sales less the ad spend is. In this case, this one netted me a positive return between my gross sales of this search term and the ad spend of $354.82. If you're in the UK, this will switch over to GBP. Basically it converts based off of which country you're in, which currency you're using. But actually, let me rephrase that. Which currency that is for the platform that you're selling on. So if you're just selling on Amazon.com, it's always going to be USD for the dollar. If you're in, if you're in Great Britain, for instance, it's going to be the pound. So in this case, I'm looking at a set of search terms that I might, yeah, okay. So there's a number of search terms that I might scale up. I might do additional keyword research for, and then there's a set of search terms that I will look at that are costing me money that I'm not making money on. And one of the things that we'll see on this is across a couple of different campaigns. As an example, maybe we've got some search terms that are just they're costing an excessive amount of money, and maybe our duplicates, like as this pointing out that we've got duplicates going on, and so those are opportunities for us to either eliminate those from our automatic campaigns using, like, say, a negative search term, negative exact search term, or we might want to take a look within our search term report and say, okay, these search terms we need to look at closer and see if we can either eliminate them or use some other variation on, maybe do some additional keyword research to find a better, more cost-effective search term that's not going to continue to lose money for me. And I might run this report every week, every couple of weeks, every month, whatever, and I'm always going to look for, okay, what's hurting me the most and I need to fix, what's working for me the best, and I might try to scale up. And this will continually change over time. Now, in the basic account, which is actually what we're looking at here, is you do have the ability, first of all, you can upload various, you can upload your search term reports. You can upload your other advertising reports as well. We just don't have all the features in line that are active yet for those particular reports yet. We're also going to have the ability soon to integrate with your Seller Central account so that it automatically downloads the campaign reports so that it can continually advertise those and actually shoot you out alerts to say, notify you through email or whatever that says, hey, you've got a problem or you've got an opportunity, to kind of give you updates as far as what your advertising is doing. Eventually, it's going to be to the point where you may not even have to go in here and even look to see what's going on. It's going to tell you, hey, you've got an issue you need to resolve. But ultimately, it's going to give you a lot more. We're going to have a lot more features, a lot more tools as we add these in that's going to allow you to better scale your advertising as well as determine where the problems are and fix those, troubleshoot the problems. Going to look for brand new opportunities that you may not have ever considered, because there's going to be a lot of data analysis that occurs on the back end that I don't even want to. I mean, I'm kind of a data geek as far as Excel spreadsheets. I don't want to do that stuff, but the software is going to be able to do that. What would normally take me 20, 30 minutes in a consulting call, the software is going to do in 2 minutes for me, as well as for each of you. Let's see here. Some of the other features we're going to be building in to include when we have the integration into the Seller Central account is going to be things like comparing your total sales as a result of pay-per-click, compare that to your organic sales, compare that also to your promotion or discount code sales. So you know exactly, okay, where are all my sales coming from? Because Amazon does a really poor job of telling you where your sales and your costs are across these 3 different areas. We're going to combine those, be able to show them within the software so that you can see them all together. So in this example here, as far as the basic account, it goes in, this is just the account level, the top level view with more extensive search terms, but there's actually things like our campaign table. So the campaign table, for instance, will actually go in and it'll allow you to sort by different metrics depending on what you're trying to focus on. Like, for instance, if you want to see, okay, where am I losing, which campaign am I losing the most amount of money on, I can immediately just do a sort by adjusted revenue, and I can see, hey, I'm bleeding money on this particular product. I need to go in there and check it. If I want to see, okay, where am I making the most amount of money, what's most profitable from an advertising standpoint, this is the campaign. And I can actually drill down in, and I can click on the link, and I can go in and see a campaign level view, which I'll show you here in a second. If my biggest concern has to do with ACOS, as far as advertising cost of sale, I can sort by that, and I can see which ones are doing the best or worst. Average cost per click. I'm actually going to add in here this week a click-through rate as well, because I think that's important as an indicator to show you whether or not, if you have a very low click-through rate, that typically means that Amazon is confidently showing your advertisement to shoppers, but the shoppers are confused by your advertisement. Usually that comes down to whatever your image or your the first part of your product title is usually confusing. So there's a bunch of different metrics that you can basically sort by here. And if I drill down into a specific campaign, let's say I go into this particular campaign here, it's actually going to show me, in this case here, I happen to pick the one that was the one that was losing the most money, and so the chart actually shifted and it says you haven't made any sales recently that have occurred more than once, and therefore all I'm going to show you is the search terms where you're losing money on and you need to address. And so maybe what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll see at the campaign level, okay, I'm actually running a 291% ACOS for this campaign. I've got some work to do. I need to clean things up. If I have, and let me go in here, so average ad spend is just out of control for this product. My average cost per click is not that bad. So there's different metrics I can take a look at, but first and foremost, I'll be able to go in there and see where are my big rocks, where are my biggest problems as far as search terms that I need to fix immediately. A side note is a lot of people don't realize is that when the search term report shows an ASIN number, that's not a customer typing in a competitor's product identifier, their ASIN. That's simply just your ad is being shown on somebody else's product detail page. And I think it was Jason that mentioned that, hey, it's illegal as far as the click fraud. If you're in a competitive niche, you can have situations like this where your ad is showing up on somebody else's listing and they're just clicking away at it, usually using software, and they're clicking away at it. An example on that is I had a couple of people that I was consulting on recently, and I helped them to identify in part using, actually one of them used the software and they identified where they had over $2,000 in click fraud occurring that they weren't even aware of. They couldn't see it until they actually just used the free report. They're actually now a paid member of PPC Scope, but they actually just used the free report to see that they had one search term that was just out of control, and it was this competitor listing. It was clearly click fraud. And when it comes to click fraud, make no mistake, Amazon is self-serving. They will not give you more than about a $75 credit regardless of whether or not they admit guilt to it. Because they just said, well, you know, unfortunately that's just a weakness of the system and sorry, too bad. So in her case, spent over $2,000, she got $75 back. So check often and identify the problems before they get out of control. In the case of, we have one feature that we're actually working out. We had to pull back to work out some bugs on it, but that has to do with being able to see within a campaign, be able to see over time how your impressions, clicks, and orders performed. You can see, basically you can track on a daily basis for the duration of whatever reporting period you're looking at. And then in each campaign, you may have multiple ad groups within a campaign, and so an individual campaign may have multiple ad groups. So we added in this ad group table. In this case, there's only one ad group in here, but it's not clickable today. But we're working on this over the next couple of days. We should have it in play, where you can actually drill down into the specific ad group level. Our more advanced versions that are going to be coming out later on in the month and early in January, those you'll be able to go down and drill down into specific products and individual search terms and be able to compare and mine data a lot more extensively. Our goal, as far as PPC Scope, as far as our team, Our goal is not to present as much information as is available. Excuse me. Pardon me. Didn't mean to cough in your ear there. My mute button didn't quite take on. Our goal is to try to progressively make the information easier to use. We're putting in training videos. We're going to continue to adapt the user interface so that you can go in here and you can see right away where you need to focus your attention on, whether it's an opportunity or it's a risk against your advertising, so that you can continually improve. Every single time you're in here and you're looking, and every time you run a campaign report, you can continually to improve on your advertising, continue to drop your cost, increase your sales, and ultimately get a net gain on your advertising. Regardless of where you're at today, you may be losing money. You may have a 500% ACOS and not understand why. This software is going to continually help you to point out, here's the problem, here's what you need to fix. Here's the opportunity, here's how you scale. That's the direction that we're going. We've already have, the basic account has a lot of actionable information, because I can tell you right now is that most people, they look specifically at where are my problem campaigns, where do I need to look at first, because I don't, every one of us, we don't have time to be down in the minutia. We don't have time to be down in the detail of campaign reports. You're working on sourcing. You're working on trying to fight off hijackers. You got all kinds of other problems that you're trying to address. The last thing you need to do is to be in here trying to hunt down problems or to take the time to discover opportunities in your advertising. That's what the software is going to point out for you, ideally as clear as a bell.
All right. How about that? Does that kind of follow through with where we want to end at?
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I wish I had all the other features to showcase for everybody as far as the more advanced versions, but as far as what's available today, as far as the software goes, there is actionable information. And now, the last thing I was going to point out too is that not only can you drill down to each individual ad campaign or ad group to narrow down where you're looking, where your focus is, but if you made a change, like let's say you made a change in the last week, and you want to look at something that just occurred, like say on, since in the last couple of days, for instance, and you ran a report, you can actually narrow it down to just look at the most current information.
Okay.
And we'll also have this all tied into estimated page one bid, campaign performance reports, even if future versions will even tie into the bulk operations for the larger accounts.
All right. So, hey, Brian, I've got some people asking how much this costs with what we're at right now, and I understand there's going to be some new stuff. Do you have, I think you said we've got a discount code for everybody, so can you explain how that works?
Sure thing. So we are, we've one of the things we've tried to do is we've tried to keep the cost on this product low, including having the free version, of course. The basic version is, that one only starts at $15 per month, and it's $150 per year. And then as we scale up to the professional enterprise versions, those will get more expensive. Those are like $150 per month and higher on up for enterprise stuff. But those typically get into more advanced features that will be well worth it. So we try to keep it pretty low. One of the things that I wanted to offer to this audience is our basic plan, which is what's available now, both the free and the basic. The basic plan that's normally $150 per year, we're going to discount that down to $119 for the full year. So I think, what is that, 30? Quick math here. Basically a $31 discount off of the annual membership for that. So let me switch over to that.
I just put the coupon code into the chat box. It's Gorillas. Gorillas 12201 is the number. So you want to write that down again. It's Gorillas 12201. But it is
15.
It is in what?
You missed a 5 at the end there.
Did I miss that? There's a 5?
Yeah, so like December 2015.
So is that right now?
See if I can let me see if I can share that here.
We want to make sure we give them the right one, obviously.
There we go. Hopefully that slide shows up, and it should show the referral code is the same thing as the discount code on checkout. So
it is. You can copy and paste it. It is correct on that last link. Gorillas 122015. So it is in there in the chat box. It's the bottom one. It's the last message. Let me see if I can.
Now, obviously, I mean, it's the $15 per month is going to pay for it. Pay for itself 10 times over. But if you want to lock in even better deal, definitely the 1 year basic plan. And to mention this also is that when we come out with the more advanced features like the Pro plans, like the Pro plan as an example, this will all get basically whatever you put into this will basically get credited into any upgrades that you may want to do in the future. So it's not like you're starting over. It's $119 today would be applied if you want an upgrade later.
Where would you go? I mean, where do you think, just as a general rule, money-wise, where do you think where do you think people should be at, just at, obviously when we get to these higher levels of stuff, but what kind of money should they be doing? How do the programs match up? Like the one we talked about, 119. Does that program, where do you think that matches up for most people?
Well, probably for anybody the free version only gets in to show account health. It's an account level overview. This actually gets you down into both the campaign and the ad group level, so you can really drill down and see where your opportunities and your problems are, so you can address those. And then one of I will tell you is that we have a couple of other features that we haven't disclosed yet that we're going to add into the basic account that's going to help you to basically leverage some new opportunities, not simply just what the table or the chart is showing, but actually additional things saying, hey, did you know that these specific search terms, out of all the customer search terms that people are using, these specific 1 or 2 word search terms within all those search terms are 10 times more profitable than the ones down here which are losing you money. And so not simply just here's a phrase that you're trying to add or eliminate, but you're actually able to identify some of the subtle things that your competitors they just can't even see, because they're not looking that deep.
Right.
We're going to try to make this very cool.
How incredible is that? And I think probably PPC besides getting a product maybe is probably the most confusing thing that people are trying to deal with. But the other thing is the most confusing thing, but it's the most profitable thing that you can have in what you're doing. So literally it's the most profitable thing, but the most confusing. So a product like this, changes the game for you, because the way in which you can be successful in this deal is because you can move yourself up so quickly, and if you can ultimately have a great listing that converts, that people understand, you have bullet points that are short enough, not trying to overwhelm it, and so you're creating a great listing, this can convert. And the more sales you get, obviously, the better BSR you get, and those things. And then you start getting natural, because as you move up with your pay-per-click, you move up pages because you're showing Amazon, which I think is one of the most important things as an Amazon person is that you convert. Your page converts. When Amazon gives you traffic and people show up there, if they can make a sale, Amazon wants you to be higher because they know if they send you traffic, you convert, some number that they like as attractive. So I think that's
let me make this comment too. Is that for anybody who's listening, if you're not currently using Amazon pay-per-click, you really need to consider jumping on board, because here's one of the things that's more commonly known is that Amazon is a very self-serving platform. They do certainly give you, for your organic listings, they do bump up your organic listings based on whether or not you're using Amazon FBA, the fulfillment services. Most people know that already they're taught in most of the training programs. What people don't realize is that the same thing holds true with the sponsored ad platform, and I can tell you that it's getting more and more aggressive, so that what used to be where it simply was just a case of, if I was running a campaign on a product and I turned off that product, I might drop down 5 to 10 positions organically because I turned off my advertising. And that doesn't mean because I lost so many sales through advertising that therefore my BSR changed and therefore my organic ranking. It could make no difference whatsoever. If I was selling one product a week through my campaign and I turned it off, I might drop down 5-10 positions in my organic listing. That's Amazon penalizing you for not using their paid service. Same thing as if you were not using FBA. What they've done just recently is they stepped that up, so now it's clear down to the keyword level, so that if you even turn off a keyword, they penalize you. It's not quite as aggressive as a whole campaign, but they certainly will knock you down organically if you're simply just not bidding on a specific search term. So what I would recommend, if you're doing it now, one of the things that I've been teaching up until this past, what was it, last week, I guess, is when they actually implemented this, and we picked up on it, is that instead of pausing a campaign or pausing a specific keyword because it's not working for you, reduce the default bid down to a penny. Don't turn it off cold. Just reduce it down so that it's ineffective, because then you won't trigger that Amazon organic penalty. I certainly don't agree with Amazon for doing it, but it's their platform and they're very self-serving. But that's my tip for you, for all of you.
Let me make sure I understand. So are you saying when you do, does that apply to an auto campaign or only a campaign?
Any campaign. It doesn't necessarily bump you up.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily bump you up as far as organic, but when you turn it off and you stop spending money for a search term or a campaign, then there's an Amazon penalty after a few days, and you can see that when your organic rankings drop. Not attributed to overall sales units sold as far as that volume goes.
Let me make sure because I mean, if we have, we've kind of made that auto campaign, and there are things that aren't converting maybe or whatever. Are we including that? Do we make that down to 1 so that won't happen? So what I'm saying is, do we keep all of the words that we put in and just make them all 1 cent instead of making them go away? Am I understanding that at all?
Correct, yeah. So if you were to, now there's a different strategy as far as moving keywords around from one campaign to another in order to isolate those. And maybe that's something that, if you want to peel off the ones that aren't working, peel those off into their own campaign, like a manual campaign, and set that budget to $1 a day with a penny bid, just to basically, it's like you're sticking them in the corner with a dunce cap, You're not completely turning them off. You're not pausing them. You're not archiving them. You're simply just making the bid so insignificant that you rarely ever will even be shown. And that seems to be enough not to draw the abuse of Amazon. I don't want to scare people off from using pay-per-click, because it can be extremely profitable. I've got clients who spend, they might spend $4 or $5 a day on advertising, and they sell $2,000 in product. You know, those situations do exist, especially after they've been working on optimizing their campaigns and really using some of the techniques and using things like the software in order to continually optimize their campaign and go after very low cost, very high return opportunities. It exists. You just need to know how to do it and be able to have the visibility to know what to focus your attention on. That's where the things like the software comes into play.
Yeah, that's magic as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
If that's what it, I mean, like, what else can you do in any business? I mean, you could spend all day in a business that puts, I mean, I'm not saying you can't do some great stuff, but if you're spending all day in a business that, let's say, per se is, on Google, and you're trying to do that business, I mean, can that business do and have that kind of, without spending money, putting a bunch of people on your SEO and all of that stuff? So obviously, what a great opportunity, or any other business that's online selling, that you can go into their platform. I kind of explain this sometimes as the Rob Burger. You go to McDonald's, and they're like, okay, listen, Rob, if you'd like to, you can make your own burger, put whatever you want on it, double bacon, pineapple, whatever that, burger that you like. We'll actually put it up on our menu. When people come by, they can buy the Rob Burger. But here's the great thing about the Rob Burger. We're going to give you 70% of that money. All right? Okay. You're going to give me 70% of this money that I put on McDonald's menu that you're going to sell. As a matter of fact, hey, Rob, you don't even have to worry about distributing or anything. You just send your product, your Rob Burgers, into us, and we'll keep them. And then when people come in to order a Rob Burger, we'll just have the Rob Burger there. And then, matter of fact, we'll also, if you want to give us some money, if you want to put up big signs all over and, have a flashing light out front that says, buy the Rob Burger instead of the Big Mac, if you're willing to do that, pay us a little bit of money, we'll let you have a Rob Burger. And I know that's kind of odd, but it's reality of what we do. We have a product that we could put on someone else's platform with someone else's customer, and then advertise to those customers and leap over people who have been there with thousands of reviews. People, now obviously, you need to have a little bit of reviews, you need to have things, but people may not click you. And there's the other magic. Matter of fact, Rob, we'll let you put up advertising in our place and market to our customers, and the only time you have to pay for it is if somebody looks at, I don't know, it's a little bit better, looks at our advertising book, and the only time you have to pay is if they click on it. Meaning, they look at the menu and they read, oh, I kind of like that, and they read the whole description. So if they read the whole description, you got to pay them. If they just look at the ad, then you don't pay them. So anyway, I know that's kind of an analogy that's a little bit out there, but I want to make it as simple as that. McDonald's lets you sell a Raw Burger and then market to their people. So I think it's as simple as that. So I put the link in there, Brian, several times, which is the Gorillas 122015.
Okay.
So 12. So basically, it's the date today, guys. Right? Is that what we come up with?
Well, it's just December 2015. 122015. Yeah.
Okay.
Brian, throughout the sort of presentation, which is absolutely awesome, thank you, we've had a number of people ask some questions with respect to, do you offer personal training? Sort of, can they contact you for additional assistance or help?
I do. I admittedly, I'm probably not the cheapest one out there, but I certainly do. So as far as just kind of frame it, people can certainly schedule that with me. My coaching sessions, which are live calls where I do one-on-one, those run about $165 an hour. There's probably other people out there who will do it for less. I would certainly recommend too is if cost is ever an issue, of course. On the ppcscope.com site, there's a training section. If you're, a free registered member, even, you'll get access to some of the training materials there, as well as like the Facebook group, as well as definitely plug into, be plugged into the Gorillas group. I mean, there's a lot of information that's going on there. That's going to provide this kind of training. So.
Right, and I think the great thing about, I mean, we're talking about in the Gorillas group is you can literally, for $99, we're going to help you do this. So when you're, if you can't afford to talk to Brian once a week at, $160 an hour, and the reason it is that much is because at some point your time becomes, you lose your time, and so to be willing and have the time to actually take out of your schedule to do that is it's a little difficult, and so that's why he has to charge that money, because he's really probably trading even more money to do that, because there's other things he can do. So that's why that time becomes so valuable, and that's the magic of the Gorillas group, is that once you pay the $99, you don't pay again for 90 days, and so for that time, for $90, you get to come to our sessions just like this, where we talk and answer questions. If you have a specific question, you send it to us as a message. You put it into Facebook. The real private Facebook only has about, I don't think it's at 70 people in it, and you can post that in there, and we can get that answer from you. If we can't, we find people that do. So again, if you're interested in that, it's $90. I think we can also get Brian. He talked about 119. So if you look in the chat, if you want to copy those down, they'll be good for sure through the front of the year. And then I know as Brian gets closer to these other enterprise systems, maybe we can, maybe some of the bigger ones we could run, for you guys is just kind of some tests and kind of see, we'll make sure that software is all right, and maybe help some of the guys in the Gorillas group figure out, how their campaigns may be working in a little bit more detail. So anyway, that's what we do. Brian, I thank you so much for coming and hanging out.
Yeah, my pleasure. I mean, I love this stuff. I mean, it's definitely, since I've focused in on the PPC side of things with Amazon, is that, it's hard to get me to shut up.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Rob, I'd like to bounce something off of Brian.
Okay.
One of the things that I see people do is they focus on that, advertising cost per sale, and forget that those are also lowering your BSR. So a break-even campaign may actually be generating you a ton of money because you're now on page 1. Agree? Disagree?
Yeah, no, definitely that is, I mean, BSR is definitely based off of the number of units, that are sold on a daily basis. And so if the advertising, if you can break even and you can generate a lot more units, and that increase in units pushes you ahead of other competitors on page 1 or page 2, then absolutely do it. And that's going to help you with your BSR. And I could care less about BSR specifically. All I want is the result of, I want to show up on page 1 or even page 2 and some, heck, on page 5 in some of the niches that I'm in. And advertising helps me to do that. But I can tell you that one of the changes that just recently occurred, last month, with Amazon permanently putting in those first couple of sponsored ad positions above the organic listings on page 1, that pushed down an organic listing of position 1 down to position 3, sometimes position 4 in some cases. And so it's critical, if you want to be even shown, the top couple of spots, advertising is the only way to do it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just think people got to get a grasp of that. You can be on the front page. Now, you said something, I mean, you talked about breaking even. Here's my deal. There's nothing wrong when you're starting your deal. You should have in your campaign or in your launch plan, you should have the fact that you are going to spend money on pay-per-click. So if you somehow get something that's 110, I mean, and I don't care. It's like you guys doing giveaways. You're doing a giveaway and they're getting a sale, but you're getting this $1.99 sale or 99-cent sale, and I mean, at the end of the day, what's wrong with having? I mean, I don't want you to have 150%, but what's wrong with a little bit of, selling your product and paying a little bit of money for it. I mean, it's just like if you're doing radio advertisement. I'm not saying you have to do that forever. Maybe that's not what I'm saying. But if you can continually add to your organic sell and it costs you some money, I mean, that's just part of doing business sometimes. So I don't know, I mean, how do you feel about that, Brian?
Sorry, my mute was not turning off there. No, I certainly agree. I mean, I don't use PPC as a primary to push my organic listings, but if it does make sense, if that's part of your strategy, that you're getting enough units sold per day as a result of your advertising and you're able to break even, and that break even or even a little bit more of an investment, because a lot of people, they give away product and they lose a lot more than what they're breaking even on their advertising. They'll give away product all day long in order to be in to have more units sold each day than their next competitors, so that they can be positioned when really they could tenfold their advertising budget and actually get converting sales and probably net the same amount overall. So it's still pretty underappreciated yet as far as what you can do. Again, if you're just starting out, absolutely always start out with that validation listing just to make sure that Amazon knows what the heck you're selling. Because if they're confused, it's going to mess up your organic listings. It's going to mess up your advertising. It's going to mess up any kind of remarketing that they're doing on whether it's Facebook ads or their direct emails out to customers. If they're confused about your product, they're not going to market you correctly.
There's another crazy analogy. The big Rob burger is McDonald's is gonna, once somebody looks at your menu and reads the description, they will chase you around the internet or chase you around town and put billboards up and do radio ads that say, hey, you need to come back and buy this. Hey, come back. Oh, the Rob burger is great. Come back and buy the Rob burger. So I mean, over and over and over again, like, it's the most incredible opportunity. I think, Brian, one of the reasons that people aren't using pay-per-click, and I think probably the number one reason is they don't understand. They don't understand. They don't know what to do. It's confusing enough. They're afraid, when they set a budget, they're just going to lose all this money, and they don't have enough budget, and that sounds crazy. Oh my gosh, they're going to charge me this much money every day. So I think that's the biggest issue with people starting, is they don't get it. They don't get it because they don't understand it, because it is very, very complex of a thing, to learn if you don't understand. I mean, you spend all this time finding products and getting it listed, doing all this stuff, and now you're saying I got to market. Well, heck, I don't even know how to market yet. So, I mean, I think that's where that comes from.
Yeah, and anybody who's done any kind of internet marketing using things like Google AdWords or any of the other major pay-per-click platforms, they compare it to Amazon pay-per-click. Amazon pay-per-click is very much in its infancy. They're still struggling just to get out the door, get started, but they're making progress. You can see hints of where they've hired on expertise from these other companies, and they're starting to scale up and starting to get more and more. The more that this kind of system works for you, and I tell you, as Amazon continues to talk about more of an external, their own ad network similar to Google AdWords. I don't know if they're really going to roll that out or not, but Amazon's is finding that pay-per-click is very profitable. There's a lot of money that can be available in it. And they're going to continue to make more of an advantage for themselves. And so, if you don't start at least learning, getting your, dipping your toe in the pool, and trying out with a single automatic campaign, with a small budget, with a small average bid, play it safe, but get started. Because honestly, I mean, one of the biggest reasons that I use the Amazon pay-per-click campaigns is to identify those search terms that are actually converting. You get all these tools out there, the merchant words and AdWords and Keyword Inspector and some of these others that will suggest it's like these are the terms that people are searching for and buying, and yet they don't really know because Amazon doesn't give them that kind of data. They only give them suggested search term data. And so pay-per-click is really the only place that you're going to be able to see what are people actually searching for that they're actually willing to spend money on. And once I know what's actually going to convert as far as search terms and my product, I'm going to absolutely optimize my product listing so that I don't care if I'm, #1 bestseller in a category and all that kind of stuff and what my BSR is. All I want to know is, do I rank really well for the search terms that actually convert for me? Because at the end of the day, I'm looking for the check to cash the check, not to have a badge.
Exactly. I mean, that's 100%. And that's why then keywords are so important, because then when people search and you pick these phrases that have exact match. I mean, I'm really working hard at writing listings right now. I've tried to get as many exact matches as I can. I mean, I spend a long time just goofing around trying to find as many exact matches as I can without repeating or making, sense. If I can get a long tail keyword that has a lot of exact terms in it, sometimes you can get 3 matches in one thing if you do it smart, because this leads to this, and I spend a lot of time really trying to find those things. So I hope that continues to help me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Brian, I want to say you did a really fantastic job here. I appreciate that.
Good.
One of the things I mentioned when you were rebooting, which I'm going to come back and mention again, is Amazon will show you the terms that you put in your listing and synonyms. It does not go out and understand your product, and there may be words that other people across the country are using, and it really helps to read articles and reviews of your competitors, reviews of books, and find additional words. And I use the example, I have a Frisbee for dogs. Well, it's used for dock diving. I'd never heard of the word dock diving, and it isn't a synonym of anything, and Amazon would never pull that out of thin air and add it to the keyword list on an automatic campaign.
You're not going to see that come up in not with any kind of search volume. But,
Yes.
Even if you had something that was a search volume that only showed up, most people will look at a list of keywords that has some kind of associated value, like, oh, supposedly the search term has, 100,000 monthly searches, and this one has 100. They're going to discount the one that says 100 and say, well, I'm not even going to bother targeting that one. And yeah, that 100, that one that has 100 searches may have a 75% conversion rate that absolutely kills that 100,000, search volume search term. You don't know. Until you
just
test
looking
it.
at like the word cartoon. Anime is actually searched more than cartoon. If you had some kind of product that you were, your keywords were based around the word cartoon, the keyword planner and merchant words aren't going to see anime as a synonym. So you're missing maybe the larger keywords. I'm just saying you need to search outside of these automated tools to find all the words that we have our own way of looking at products and what we call them, and other people could call them something totally different, and we need to find that and put those keywords in our campaigns to see if they work.
Yeah, and I think probably the people who struggle with that the most, selling on the .com, the Amazon.com platform, are those in other countries who are used to certain terminology that doesn't necessarily port over to the American buyers, and vice versa. If you're going to sell internationally, you need to understand not only there's language, there's translation language differences, but there's also just as far as terminology. In Japan it's anime, in the United States it's cartoons, but the influence of anime has overwhelmed the use of cartoon, and therefore it's become more dominant in American culture now than it was previously.
We're getting some great comments in the comment about very understandable, and that was the purpose of this whole thing, which was very understandable, because Brian asked me, so what kind of people do you have that are going to come to this webinar? And I said, I would say that people are in very early stages of doing this. They're just starting, or they may have something launched, and maybe on their second product and kind of got lucky in how they did it the first time. and they were able to to be able to make some momentum without pay-per-click. And so that's what this was about today, and I hope that we accomplished that, and hopefully some of the comments have left us to that. Hey guys, I try not to keep these things too long, because people, when they come back and try to rewatch it, Brian, do you have anything you want to add? How any of you guys want to add to kind of what, maybe to some kind of summary?
I have 10 more calls I could do on this topic, but I will just say that I mean, there's kind of supporting as far as what you were saying earlier, Rob, as far as being part of the Gorillas Mastermind group, and owning, being part of communities, like owning like the PPC scope software and that kind of stuff. Part of what you're investing in is not simply just what the information that you can listen to, or what the software will tell you. A lot of it has to do with the investment that is worthwhile, that most people don't make, that gives you an edge, is that knowledge where we're out there constantly making sure we're on top of the latest changes, and we communicate that out to our audiences, to our communities. And in most cases, that's going to have a lot more value than whatever course or tool that you came in for initially. It's being current on the latest changes and what to do about it and how to take advantage of it has 10 times the value that what you may have come in with.
And I think that's why we do it, and that's why the Gorillas deal is just a little bit different, because our goal isn't to do a course. We're not a course-oriented organization. We call our resources the library, because it's meant to be able to go in the library, kind of go through the library and the lessons that might be in there, pick what you need, and move forward. Not that you couldn't kind of follow it, but the biggest problem people have is they need the questions answered. They need to be where they can go, and because we have 2 times a week, you can come into a room and go, hey, Rob, hey, Paul, hey, audience here, what do you think about this? Or, Brian comes by and does, a more advanced session or whatever it is, and other guests. And like I said, I really like guests who are just doing $10,000 a month, because they're the closest one to where you're at. And that's
Right.
the information you need. You don't need information, like I said, about a guy doing $100,000 a month. He cannot relate to what you do. Absolutely. He's so far ahead that you couldn't possibly understand. So that's why we try to keep that. And that's why I like the Gorillas group, because, Brian, if you go to him and say, hey, listen, I need an hour exclusively, again, the cost is so much more. But if we put everybody in a group and they're able to, we're kind of able to make the group money just kind of, spread out over everybody. And, the group are always going to try to keep small enough. And, and people come and go and they listen on their own. So, pretty directly, we get every single question every single question that's answered. We don't have any problem at all with that. So anyway, guys, thank you so much. We can kind of sit down. Heck, I got one more question. So some of these guys are doing what I call kind of a mix of retail, online arbitrage, and they're doing some stuff. How do you feel about using pay-per-click in some of those categories if they've made a bundle that gets them kind of an exclusive? I mean, I would say that it's very similar, wouldn't it be? Did we lose Brian?
Nope, I'm sure. Sorry about
Okay.
that. No, my mute, our mute button again. So, I was trying to understand as far as what you're asking, and then I was a little bit confused. So maybe you could rephrase it a little.
Okay, so we've got some people who are in the group, and what they've basically done is instead of just going out and get a direct PL product, they've taken maybe some products they might find on Kohl's or another product and made a bundle of, some of them may be branded products, some of them, adding in something unique to a branded product. So let's say they took cornflakes and then they added a specific bowl that has like a sip drink, or a bowl that has a straw on it, and it comes with a spoon or 4 of those bowls, and you buy it as a bundle. So it makes you generic enough, or makes you less people to be able to list underneath you, because you're offering something unique. And so To me, I feel like that's very close to a PL product, because the idea is you don't want 20 people underneath you, so you create a product that's kind of unique to what you do. So I guess the question is can they use pay-per-click, and do you think that would be effective in a product scenario like we've talked about?
Yeah, I mean, pay-per-click's not going to give you a whole lot of variation as far as, I mean, you can certainly adjust your targeting in order to market to different classes of people who if your product goes across a couple of different categories or focuses, then you can certainly have different campaigns that target individual buyer segments, if you will. But as far as differentiation goes, I mean, that's going to be more. I think it's going to be more reliant on the listing itself as opposed to what you'll use pay-per-click for.
I mean, if we're doing Kellogg's cornflakes, I mean, can we buy those? Can we buy that term as far as wanting to be on the same page as them? If we have something that's a combination, is that against TOS, or are we able to do that?
So yeah, I mean, there's terms of service and there's enforced terms of service. So terms of service, for instance, says that where I can use a campaign to bid on let's say I do a phrase match of a competitor's brand name, which works very well, by the way. Technically, Amazon does not want you to bid on a competitor's actually not bid on, but they don't want you to include the competitor's brand name in your search term fields. However, they do a very poor job of policing that, and so people do it every day. And part of that search term field in the back end and your title, you definitely don't want to put it in your title, but certainly in the search term field in combination with your advertising campaign is a pretty good way of having your ad shown on competitor brand listings. And so, you can certainly take advantage of that and take advantage of the fact that somebody else is coming out, especially in a case where you've got a national brand that's directly competing with your own product, and they're bringing in their own brand traffic. So if shoppers come to Amazon and they're searching for the competitor brand and the product, and they see your advertisement, a lot of times they'll consider your product as an alternative because it's showing up there, and they may buy from you, especially if you're competing against somebody who's more expensive.
Well, yeah, and so I think that's probably, we're going to leave it with that statement. I really believe, because I think the way that Amazon is set up is that, well, I know that it is, they want to offer great prices to people. That's their number one goal. So if they let the public know that, hey, we have all of these products and they're the best prices in the market. So I think Amazon is so focused on pricing that if you price your product appropriately, that can help you out tremendously, certain when you start. How do you feel about that, Brian? And then we'll wrap this thing up.
Yeah, I mean, pricing, I don't try to get into price wars. I do try to differentiate my product so that I can provide more value. But ultimately, sometimes I cannot compete with somebody directly for a search term when they're selling at a low price. Oftentimes what I have to do is I have to hunt around, and this is where I use pay-per-click, because I try to figure out which terms that other competitors may not be bidding on, and go after terms so that basically I'm kind of hiding in the shadows, if you will. So, instead of competing directly for a competitor who is either bidding on a product or targeting a specific search term, and they're driving the price down farther and farther, rather than trying to just go down with them, I'll try and figure out what's an alternative set of search terms that I can bid on that that my product is being seen by an entirely different audience than what my competitor is, who's constantly trying to drive down the price. And so oftentimes I don't need to. You play around with pricing a little bit. You change it up periodically in order to. You kind of mix up your marketing and get new attention, but I definitely stay out of the race to the bottom game, because that's not. Try to differentiate yourself and try to go. Go where your competitors are not.
I think that, and that's what we can do with this, with pay-per-click. Listen, thank you so much, Brian. Thank you so much, Hal. I appreciate you stopping by. I'll drop in before we go out of the live chat. When we shut down, you can still have the live chat, and we'll post both of these links if you're interested in the boot camp or you're interested in getting the discount for this. If you're listening to this later, we'll make sure that we have that on the screen so that you can see the exact same links and stuff. Hey guys, thank you. I hope you enjoy your week. I wish you guys all great selling, and thanks for coming to Gorilla's boot camp today. You guys
Thanks,
have
everybody.
a great day.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Rob. Try to stay off the dirt.
Hey, before I go, I'll let you guys see one more time. This is my view. It's got a little clearer out today. Now, I'm sitting on the front porch of my hut.
It's a hard life, but I guess somebody's got to do it.
Hey, listen, it's not like I'm living in a luxury resort. I am sitting on, not that it's a bad gig, but I am sitting on the front porch. Here's one of the great things. Directly across from me, I mean, literally identical across from me, on the other side of the mountain, is it's got to be 100-foot Buddha. It's a white Buddha. You have to go up all these stairs, and then literally it's sitting at the top of these stairs, kind of like when Rocky runs up the stairs. So yesterday when I got up the stairs, I did the Rocky pose, and in the background is this 100-foot Buddha made out of I think it's cement, but it's gigantic. And now it's very small across the way, but here it is. Hey guys, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to living the hard life. I actually rode on a road yesterday that had 786 turns. 780 turns is how much I was in to get down the mountain. So, hey guys, thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.